We are women empowering women, and we all serve a largely female client base. And we also serve the same clients a lot of times. Maybe not the same individual client, but we are serving the same basic group of people. And so who we have on the call today is we have a CPA, we have a realtor, and we have an estate planning attorney. And we're going to talk about a single topic, but share our individual perspectives based on our experience and the services that we provide to our clients. Our topic for today is going to be what happens when a widow walks into your office. Now, this is a time when a woman is often at her most vulnerable time. She may need some additional hand-holding, and she may or may not already have relationships that she can trust to help in that. So how does she get the help that she needs without being taken advantage of? And that's really what we're here to address, or what are some of those concerns. And we're going to start with Terra Van Zant, who owns her CPA firm in Folsom, to talk about some of the tax implications. Terra?
Well, I think, most of all, it's usually a trust thing with the advisor that you have. So it's somebody that you feel like you can trust and you can talk to, is generally, especially when you are feeling so vulnerable. It's always important to have somebody that you can trust. And then also just asking lots of questions. As a CPA, I always, when a widow comes into my office, I try to always be there as a resource and be available whenever there's questions that come up. And then I also try to make sure that I'm educating the person as well. So making sure that everything that I can explain, I explain. Why am I asking for this? What do I, all of those various questions. So it's good to understand all the aspects, and that's what your advisor is there for, is to talk to and to ask whatever questions you have, and don't be afraid to continue to ask them.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So when someone reaches out to you, I imagine if they're going to make an appointment, it's going to be by phone or by email or whatever. Anyway, do you have anything that you ask them to commonly bring to an appointment?
Usually, yeah. It's well, it depends. I have many widow clients, so most of the time it starts with, of course, the estate part of it. And so when when your husband passes away, generally what you want is a death certificate and trust. If there's a trust agreement, you'll want that. And then also a tax return, like a prior tax return, an estate, if you have a will. So basically any of the documents having to do with the estate, and then also any tax returns from the year before is helpful. And those are kind of the initial, understanding of what's going on, because we have to know what the trust is doing in relation to the will, in relation to any other estate documents that are out there. So, so that's where we start. And then, I usually, depending on how complicated an estate is, or your estate is, then I usually will have a couple follow-up meetings in person, and then there's always the telephone calls usually. So it can be, depending on how complicated, it can be a process, but it's something that that I like to make sure I understand the whole situation. So I like to make sure I have those in-person meetings and those phone calls so I understand everything and I'm doing it correctly and I'm understanding the whole situation and explaining it to you as well.
Gotcha.
So.
And I guess the last question that I would ask you is, do you find, and I realize that all appointments are different, but is there an area that you commonly find a lot of widows are surprised by, or, you know, oh, I had no idea, or is there something like that that commonly comes up?
Um, well, you know, it's a complicated area, so there's a lot of things I think like that. You know, and sometimes, you know, sometimes it's actually can be fairly simple. If you have an estate, you just have a house, you know, there's not a lot going on.
Mhm,
Then it sometimes it can be a short process.
mhm,
Um, I can't think of anything specifically that I hear constantly as far as no, you know, not understanding it. I mean, I think one thing that people are not, actually, there's one thing that people I don't think are aware of a lot of times is that you get that if you have real estate or you have any type of assets, you get that step up at death.
mhm.
So basically you get a step up to your market value. So a lot of times what happens is you really don't, people always come in if scared, oh, I'm going to owe on all this tax. And then a lot of times it will equate to not as much as they would think, because they're thinking, oh, I got $50,000 in cash, I'm going to be taxed on that. No, that's not usually the situation. There's usually, you're not going to be taxed on it all. So that probably is the common thing I get is they think it's all going to be taxed at that moment. So,
Well, that's a
yeah.
super important thing to be aware of, because that sometimes can keep people from taking action and even asking the question because they're afraid of the answer.
Right,
So
right.
although each situation is different, just that basic understanding is good to hear. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing from the tax perspective what a widow could expect. And again, everyone's situation is different, so this is not meant to be an exhaustive answer by any means, just a chat between women empowering women. So I am going to talk next, and I am Sheryl Smith, broker, owner, and realtor with Smith Real Estate Services. And I am the one that people are talking about their living situation. And the first thing, like Terra, that I need to understand is, what do they want to do? Sometimes they want to stay in their home and they're not able to stay in their home. Sometimes they don't want to stay in their home at all. They want to move to be closer to their children or grandchildren. There could be a variety of things, but oftentimes a big complaint that I hear from widows with their home is that it's big, and maybe the husband was the one that took care of the yard work or fixing things around the house, and now all of a sudden she's by herself and she doesn't know how to do those things, and it can be quite expensive to hire somebody for everything. And so that can sometimes be a motivator, and that's important for me to understand, because I'm not here just to say, yep, let's just get that house sold. That is not what I'm here for, although there are a lot of people who do approach it that way. But if the desire is to stay in the home, then we want to start there and we want to see, is that possible? Is that realistic? If, for example, you've been a stay-at-home mom and you don't have the income to be able to afford the mortgage, then that's something to factually look at. And yet we don't just jump in there. We have to really, like I say, understand what the desire is and see, can it be achieved? The second thing that is important to look at is, do you have the option of doing what you want with the real estate? Because how the home is held, as far as from a title perspective, sometimes you can do what you would like with the home, but depending on how title is held, that may not be possible. There could be other parties that are involved with that decision. And there's a lot of people with adult children who, or from previous marriages and those kinds of things. There could be a whole bunch of stuff there. So looking at the title is going to be really important to understand. what the options might be. There's lots of other things to look at, but those are really the two main things. And I will share with you that I am a widow, which is one of the reasons why we're having this conversation. And fortunately, my husband and I had the foresight to have estate planning done, so we had a trust. And it made things so much easier for me, even though I'm a very strong individual. I was not strong at that time. And because I was not strong at that time, it was really safe for me to have that document to rely on, that attorney to rely on, my tax professional to rely on, rather than having what felt like the vultures circling who are just wanting to take advantage of a widow in that situation. So I'm very personally passionate about this particular topic because women should not have to be subjected to that, in my view. So that is what I will say on that topic. And so now you've heard both Terra and I mention the trust documents. So we're going to hear from Soojin Kim, who owns her estate planning practice in El Dorado Hills. And we're going to hear, what can this widow expect with you?
So happy to be on this call and just to share what I can about estate planning, just for widows or anyone who's out there, but especially with widows. I feel like it takes more prep on my part, but it's not necessarily the work, it's the mindset. So this is someone who has lost their spouse. It could have been their spouse partner of 10, 20. I had one recently of 50 years. So that is a huge transition and a big change for anybody to go through. But what I've noticed is I have to be ready to embrace that person because they're in a really vulnerable state. So when they come in, especially for estate planning, so with estate planning, we prepare for your incapacity and for the event that you pass. So in an instance with a widow, the person that they would have logically or naturally named as their first option is probably not in the picture anymore. And that is a really big thought for them to have when they first come into the office. And they think, oh, well, if not my if not my spouse, then who? So you have to start that thinking process on the call or in person early. So when I usually meet my widow clients as referrals, so either from a CPA or a realtor, and they've already been given notice, hey, you really should think about this, or how are your estate planning documents? Well, we meant to, we never did it, or we did it, but we did it 30 years ago, whatever the situation may be. For as soon as I get to speak to the client, it's not a business call. It's more of like, let's feel comfortable. So I have to be calm and help my client be calm, because we have to think rationally, right? We're thinking about, okay, in the event that she passes, who is she going to designate as her agent or her trustee or whatever the situation may be? So the first call, I have to remind myself and be in a calm state so that I can lead that conversation, because I'm not trying to be really professional. I'm not trying to get all the facts. That's not the time and place for that. At first, they need to be able to trust me. Like Tara had mentioned, that trust is really important. And I feel like with widows, it's even more important for me to be upfront, but very genuine, and just allow them that space and give them my time so that we can build that rapport. So when we do that over the phone, then they feel a little bit more at ease. And I just give them a heads up, when you come in, if you own a home, then bring a copy of your grant deed. If you have, certified copies of the certificates, then, bring that in, and we'll just have another conversation, and I can, we can go through the questionnaire together. And I think that's really important to emphasize, that when you're doing this together, because like I said, they've gone through a huge transition, a huge change. And it is really hard to think of the next option besides your spouse that you just lost. So for me, it's all about making myself available and vulnerable and putting it out there on the first, that contact. And then afterwards, then it's okay. Well, you know, we can think about this. If not your spouse, then your children or your niece, you know, who have you liked? Like, who have you been talking to? Who's been coming by to, you know, bring you flowers or bring you groceries or something? That's the natural progression of that conversation. But I think it's absolutely important that you first make yourself just as vulnerable to that, because they've just gone through such a huge life change.
Well, thank you, Soojin. I really appreciate how you shared the thoughtfulness that's so important, because for all of us who have dealt with many widows, of which we all have, there are often tears. There are often, and they don't want to cry. I'm going to say we, since I was one, we don't want to cry in those appointments, but we oftentimes are, like, emotional. And so, as Soojin and Terra both mentioned, being calm in that setting and not to fall apart because this woman is sitting in front of us, being vulnerable with, you know, emotions that are definitely challenged during that time. So we have been talking about the end today. That is what happens when a widow walks into your office. But what I hope you're hearing from this is that it's a good idea to plan before you get to that point. It's really, when you get to that point, if you haven't taken care of your estate planning documents, if you don't know and feel comfortable with your CPA, with a realtor that you feel like you can trust, not just someone who's looking to get the transaction done, then those are relationships for you to start thinking about now. And many times, if it's the husband who's been taking care of the money, which is in many times, in many families, that's the case. If you're, you know, not particularly comfortable with the person that he's comfortable with, let's face it, men and women are different, then it could be a good thing for you to start exploring some other possibilities, so that you're not just caught unaware. And you know, candidly, I will say, nobody wants to think about this. Nobody wants to go see Soojin and talk about their spouse passing away. It's a very uncomfortable thing to do, and yet it can really give you a peace of mind. And so that's the topic that we're talking about today. And next time we are completely switching it up, because our topic for next time is going to be, is everybody really leaving California? And what's the impact of that exodus? So we hope to see you next time as we have our chat with Women Empowering Women, or Women Educating Women. It's WEW either way. But we hope to see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Thank you.